Good day, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you are. Thanks for joining again this third session of the Content Hub Revolution webinar series. It's great to have you with us and see many people coming on as I start here. Really great session today because you have many experienced minds on this session. It's not just going to be one single presentation. We're going to have lots of contributors talking about their experiences and different ways to use content hubs and PIM, or product information management. And I used to be a part of a research firm, and several years ago we did a study about the most common integration points for digital asset management. And definitely by far the two most common ones were content management systems and then product information management systems. And even if you don't work for a large product company like we have today on the session, you might perhaps work for a museum or performing arts institution or anything that has a thing that needs to be connected to digital assets or data that needs to be connected to digital assets in some way. So in today's session, we're going to hear about how Pergo, of course, connects their products to digital assets and get a much broader perspective on why it's important to connect digital asset management and product information. So let's first just go around the virtual room and make sure that you met everybody who's going to be talking today and contributing to the session. And we'll just go horizontally across the pictures here and start with Amy. Amy, hopefully you might be on mute if you're talking and we can't hear you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Looking forward to talking to you about our experience and our journey that we have been going down. I am the Associate Director of our Commercial Execution and Support team at the Perrigo Company, and I have been with Perrigo for almost 29 years, and I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about where we are with our journey in this Content Hub PIM DAM solution. Thank you.
Fantastic. I'm Josh Van Dyk. I oversee the North American sales as well as all of our partnerships and partner relations in North America for Sendshare. Delighted to be sharing some insights with you today and excited to be here.
Perfect. Hi everyone, my name is Justin and I am the team lead solution consultant here at Censhare. Today I'll be leading the demo for you all today, and I'm very excited to do so. So take care.
Thanks, Justin. So my name is Derek Schroeder. I'm Amy's peer at Perrigo. I kind of work in the dark side. I guess I work in the IT department. So I'm, we talk when she has to talk to me, I guess would be the best way to say it. Similar to Amy, I've worked at Perrigo for just about 29 years. So we both have seen a lot of changes through technology and through Perrigo, and this was a welcome change. So looking forward to the session.
And I think, Josh, we also have another sort of technical Sendshare resource who's going to be available to answer questions. Is that right as well?
Yes, correct. Yeah, I've actually invited Rui Ramos on from our team. He's one of our heads of our product department. And so any product related questions or more technical related questions as they come through at the end, we'll have Rui as well there to help answer those.
Superb. So I know even my own self, I'm really looking forward to this session because I have been through 3 Sendshare implementations myself in the last 18 months. I had 3 different clients select Sendshare, and yet every single time I see something having to do with Sendshare, demonstration, whatever, I learn something new, even though I've worked myself with the product. So take it away, Josh, and teach us about DAM and PIM, and we'll get into the demo.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, all right, today we'll be talking about the Content Hub and specifically how does PIM go into that Content Hub to really make it complete. So a little agenda. We'll talk about the role of the PIM within the Content Hub, some of the modern day challenges, some things to consider within a PIM. Then we'll have Perrigo speak about their journey and how they went about selecting a vendor, some of the things to consider, some of the things to maybe look out for. We'll hand it over to Justin then to walk through a demo so that you can actually see how does the PIM in the DAM overlap? How does that help benefit you? Where does that create that collaboration within your team? And then, of course, we're going to leave enough time for some Q&A at the end. There is a questions tab in the GoToWebinar. So as you have questions, so that you don't forget them, feel free to type them into the questions section in GoToWebinar, and we will be able to address them there at the end. So what's a PIM? Why is it important? Your product information management integrates all of that product data into a single record. This ensures that your latest product information is used on every channel. And if you don't have something like that in place, oftentimes you see different information on different channels, and you're not telling a consistent story. It also, of course, saves time, costs, resources, eliminating some of those siloed systems. It avoids those product errors in the collateral, reducing customer complaints, financial losses. I was actually on a demo yesterday with a prospective client, and they are actually out there, making products, and they push it out to that product information to their website. They also have manuals, they have catalogs, and they did an audit because they were getting some complaints that the information wasn't accurate. And they found that 70% of the time, on 70% of their products, the information that was in a catalog and what was on the website or what was on some sort of fact sheet was actually not all the same. There was errors within it. And what happens is that then you get complaints, you get returns, you can be liable on some cases. So we want to avoid that by creating that single point of truth. It obviously easily and quickly corrects the errors on every product across all of the instances. And of course, we have something in place as well that are called quality gates. And it actually allows you to have a completeness check to see where everything is within the product, to see is it ready to be displayed. So what's the role of the PIM within the Content Hub? And your Content Hub and your PIM should be this fast, workable system, something to quickly, easily organize, edit everything on the content that's being used. Really think of it as the home base, right? So within your Content Hub, you want to be integrating the most important information. You want to be pushing and pulling data. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But really, you want to be able to utilize that hub and connect all of your systems. And then, of course, you need a holistic solution. Oftentimes, there's standalone solutions, and they have a short product runway, or they are kind of bandaged together, and so you don't really get a complete story, and it's really hard to get that really comprehensive story out, of course. And if you're not doing that, you're probably not getting the most out of the ROI as well. So you might be sitting there going, well, who needs a pub? Who needs a PIM, excuse me? And so oftentimes I think people think, well, I'm a manufacturer or retailer, of course I need it. But what I've noticed recently is a lot of people are looking at PIMs that aren't your traditional companies. So for example, I was on a Henry Stewart webinar listening as an attendee a few months back, and I heard the Children's Hospital in Philadelphia talking about how they use a PIM feature within their DAM, and I thought, wow, that's really interesting. A PIM for a hospital, and what they look at it is their products are the story of their treatments. Okay, so if they were treating something like autism, that story around that treatment with that client is the product, and the product attributes are maybe the client's information, the client's photo, the treatment they did, a actually written out text as an asset story around that client and the improvements that they made, a asset that's maybe a disclosure form that the client signed off on. That's a product attribute for them. And all of those things are living within the system, and the story of that treatment is the product, and everything that supports that story are the product attributes. We also recently were in conversations with a travel industry, and this is a more like state-run travel industry where you're trying to get someone to visit your state or your province. And so every single attraction within that state is an actual product. The ski shop, the bed and breakfast, the coffee shop, all the product attributes of the phone number, the hours, the images, the videos, everything that supports that product are those product attributes. And I thought, man, that's really interesting. So we're seeing a lot of people, of course, retailers and manufacturers, their products are the products as well. But a lot of industries are looking at this and saying, you know what, we've got a story to tell, and our story is the product, and it has a lot of supporting characteristics that we need to keep track of in order to convey a really accurate and holistic story. So there's some, challenges, right? There's 3 key challenges we've outlined here with a standard PIM. There's this increasing complexity. So one of them is the growth of the product-related data. This is growing exponentially. This isn't something that is going to slow down. You're probably not going to have less product-related data a year from now or 5 years from now. You'll probably have more. And as that volume increases, you're going to need a spot to really make sure that that is organized and complete. Oftentimes within a PIM, they have really some PIMs have very structured and unflexible, I would say, data models. So oftentimes clients say, all right, that could work for us maybe, but over a year or 2, as they start to do other things and tie in other divisions and create new products, sometimes that information becomes a little bit challenging to work within a very structured data model, so they need a little bit more flexibility within their data model. And also, you need to make sure that you have proper integrations with your PIM. The PIM system that's not integrated with all the wider marketing activities isn't going to deliver the maximum value. So who should invest in a content hub? Who should say, yes, let's take that step forward, especially in these uncertain times. We have Corona. You say, should we do this? Should we not next year? We looked at a study that was done by Gartner, and it was done just recently. So it was done during Corona. And what they noticed is that in tech companies, tech currently, for marketing companies, for the marketing budget accounts for nearly a quarter, 26%. So they're continuing to spend money on tech to aid marketing. CMOs really remain bullish about their technology in the next 12 months and investing in additional technology. And CMOs spend nearly a quarter of their budget on digital advertising, so including digital, video, paid social, things of that nature, paid search. So if you're going to spend the money and put information out there, making sure it's correct, making sure it's accurate. And then, another 59% goes towards owned and earned digital channels, such as social marketing, websites, SEO, mobile marketing, things of that nature. So what I took away from this study is if you're going to spend a lot of time, effort, and energy into telling that story, into putting that information out there into the world, let's make sure we do it right. Let's make sure that that information is accurate and that the story is told the right way. So one of the things I did in preparation for this webinar is I actually spoke to a lot of our different partners, and I said, hey, Sendshare does something different. We have a PIM as part of a larger content hub. It ties into your DAM or your CMS and whatnot. What are some of the limitations you see as a PIM as a standalone solution versus tying it in with your digital asset management system? And they came back to me and they said, Josh, well, every PIM has some digital asset capabilities where they can go ahead and say, yeah, we can house an image. We could kind of do some DAM stuff. But typically, when you start to dive into a PIM as a standalone point solution, oftentimes what you find is it falls short for all the things that marketers really need to do their jobs. such as a few here: bulk editing of metadata, bulk download of assets, asset relationships, the mechanisms to control the licensing and copyrights. Over here on the left-hand side, and I'm sure Justin will show this in the demo a bit more, within Sendshare, you can actually click on an asset and see its full spider web relational view and everything and where it's connected. So a product might be connected to a manual, it might be connected to other products, it might be pushed out to a website, it might have an author of some of the content or the product description. You can actually see how everything is connected. You can tie in licensing and copyright information on where that product is sold, what countries it's sold in. If you had a celebrity promote the product, how long are you able to use their imagery and use them in a commercial, right? Tying all of that together into that product. A few other limitations that our partners pointed out are, the visibility of an asset's version control. So making sure that the newest version, can override the previous versions with no way, sometimes there's no way of going back. So being able to get back to those previous versions, cross-linking those InDesign, place graphics, converting assets into different aspect ratios or things that sometimes PIMs have a challenge doing. And then simply, simply changing an asset file name. The internal naming convention may mean very little to externals or new employees. So things to consider there in looking at a PIM as part of a more holistic solution. And that is what we're up to do, is create a content hub. A content hub, creating your single source of truth. And what does that mean? Well, on the left-hand side, you can see we may be pulling information in from other systems that are important to you, whether that be an ERP system or maybe a BI tool, whatnot, pulling that information into the hub. And sometimes you might even push information out from the hub back to those tools as well. All right, working within that universal content hub there, where your DAM and your PIM and maybe your CMS may overlap. You may have other things within that hub as well, but everybody on the team is working collaboratively within the hub. And as information is moved forward and approved, pushing that information out to the purple section here, to the channels that are most important to you and your marketing team, whether that be your mobile, whether that be your website, whether that be print, social, whatnot. This allows for collaboration within the hub. This allows for a consistent brand being pushed out to the external channels, and allows for everyone to be on the same page. And the goal here is to avoid that siloed content, right? So Sendshare kind of has a unique place within the marketplace. Clearly, there's many DAM vendors out there. There's a lot. There's some PIM vendors out there. There's even some CMS vendors out there. But what we found is where the true magic happens is in the middle there. When you can create that hub where every different department is accessing the same information and working collaboratively, communicating within the system. And this helps solve those really unique content challenges. And sometimes you may even layer on top of that print or MRM capabilities. So within Sendshare today, we're going to be focusing more or less on the product information and the digital asset management and how those two tie into each other. But within Sendshare, we like to think of ourselves as a future-proof product with a very long product runway. So although someone may start with just a PIM or just a DAM or a content hub with all of those things, they're going to build on that hub. They're going to create more within that hub, not just tying in external channels or external platforms, excuse me, but within the platform itself. Maybe they're adding marketing campaign management, maybe they're adding print production, maybe a web CMS or headless CMS. And so they are able to build on the hub within Sendshare's product line. This is, why we're trusted by a lot of leading brands worldwide. I'm sure everybody recognizes some of these logos on here. One of the things that's interesting is because we are a modular platform, we do have smaller mid-sized companies that are growing with us, but we also have very large enterprise companies as well that we're solving those complex content challenges for. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Pergo. Pergo is going to be able to talk about their journey. I've invited Amy and Derek on, who I've worked very closely with. They're really amazing people. And for those of you who don't know Pergo, it's one of those multi-billion-dollar companies that you've never heard of. And now that you'll know about them, you'll see them everywhere on your ibuprofen, on your baby formula, on your cough medicine. You will see this company everywhere now that you've been made aware of them. So fantastic, super excited to have Amy and Derek to share their journey and what they went through. So Amy, Derek, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, I'm Amy Bazell, as I stated previously, and I'm going to talk to you about who is Perrigo. Josh stated you probably don't know who Perrigo is because our name isn't on the products that we make. It's actually the retailer's name. Equate for Walmart and Target, Up and Up. So it's very interesting. I started at Pergo, like I said, almost 29 years ago. I didn't know who Pergo was until I started there. And we have grown exponentially over the past 29 years, where we have 28 manufacturing facilities. There are 52 billion solid doses a year that we manufacture. Our CEO, Murray Kessler, likes to state, every 2 or 3 seconds of every single day throughout the entire year, somebody is taking one of our products. We have 23 billion liquid doses per year that we manufacture, over 3,000 formulations that we make. And we have actually over 14,000 SKUs, stock keeping units. Over on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see we have listed the different dosage forms and some pictures of some of the products that we actually make and distribute. Lots going on, and as you can imagine, the amount of information we need to manage. Not only are we a pharmaceutical company, we are a consumer products goods company, and we have over 40 retail customers that we sell product to. And they, over the years, have actually pushed a lot of their work onto us, and you probably may have experienced that as well. So having this content hub is very critical in order for us to manage our business.
So I'll talk a little bit about how we got there and how we chose the content hub that we're utilizing with Sendshare. And this really all started roughly, I would say, 2 years ago. I answered the phone when Amy called me. Amy called and said, hey, I need help. My responsibility is, I didn't really go into it earlier, but I'm responsible for the commercial solutions for our Americas business and for our Europe business. I share that responsibility with a couple other people, but the business-to-business platforms and the PIM DAM, or DAM PIM, depends on the day, they all fall up underneath me. So Amy called and said, hey, I need some help with this. We have roughly 500 data elements. We've got multiple sources. We've got 40-some people that kind of have the tribal knowledge of where this data is stored, of how to compile it, of what to do with it. All that has to be pulled together by all those people into a consumable, controlled, because we're an FDA, we're governed by the FDA. So everything we publish out to the real world has to be right. We have to do things right. There's a lot of quality behind what we do. But Amy's team was kind of pulling all this together, and all of it to get syndicated out to our customers, to the retailers, right? And so, logically, we looked at this and said, okay, it sounds like we need a PIM DAM solution to help us down this path. Now, I say the word path, and it's kind of ironic because I know Josh used the word and Amy used the word journey throughout the conversation, and we actually had a contest early on in this project on what should the project be called, because the project DAM PIM or PIM DAM just didn't resonate. So we always like to give everything a pet name. And we had a contest with various names, and the project actually became Project Journey. So we're using some of the song names from Journey from our, because we have a lot of graphics, a lot of creative people on this project that are creating a lot of representation for our Project Journey throughout this. So I just thought it was kind of funny that Josh used it and Amy used it. I don't even think she realized it early on. So our journey began with Amy and I, as I had mentioned, and we went out to Gartner and we went out to Forrester and we looked at who are our incumbents, who do we currently use that has some of the skill sets that we need for that. We came up with roughly 18 vendors. Now, I don't know if it was the time of year or what it was, but some of the vendors just completely dropped out of the picture when we started talking to them. I said, no, that's not something we could do. And I think at the time when we were looking at this, we were looking at a PIM DAM solution, something that Josh had mentioned that can do it all, right? And when we first started this adventure, that wasn't the case. People were the solutions that were out there were either in the PIM side of the house or in the DAM side of the house, and there wasn't a lot of places, a lot of companies that did everything. That's one of the reasons why we landed with this, but I'll get to that in a second. So we went out and did a normal RFP process. We created a weighted objective ranking for that, and we got the top 3 or 4, and we brought them in, evaluated all those, etc. And we did land, obviously, with Sendshare, and that's why we're here today. One additional thing is the whole do it all, and I know I'm giving Sendshare a lot of credit. We did have to go with multiple vendors because while the PIM DAM solution satisfied a lot of our requirements, the syndication portion we do have to go through other avenues for, because our retailers require it of us. So the retailers are saying we're only going to accept from XXX. So that's where we were forced. We had our hand forced on this. So we have Sendshare kind of as our content hub in the middle, various syndication tools on the outside of that feeding our retailers. So that's the whole. We did learn that while the plan for Sendshare, and that's why we're partnered with Sendshare, is to have that one solution that fits all the requirements. At the time when we started this, they weren't there yet, and we're hoping they get there completely soon, and all the retailers kind of land on that syndication solution. So with that, I'll hand it back to Amy, and she'll talk a little bit about the complexities that we're dealing with.
Yeah, so this slide, that graphic that we have there is not intended for you to have to read it. It's intended to just give you a perspective of what our current manual process is today and all of the different handoffs that we have in order for us to get an item syndicated out to a retailer. It's painful, lots of back and forth through email, having to go into different systems. We have over 40 places we literally have to mine to get all of our information that we need. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that over the years, we've seen from through growth, both in our business and our retailers' business, the number of attributes that they're requiring from us. So it's been like an attribute explosion. When I first started having to share information with retailers, maybe like 20 different attributes. Now, well over 300, anywhere from 300 to 500 attributes that we have to syndicate out to our retailers. And Josh's little story that he told earlier about, one company that they did an audit and they had 70% of their info across all of the different locations, how it was, they found that it was inconsistent. We have the same thing, and Sendshare is going to help us fix that by having a central location, one source of truth for information where everybody goes in and collaborates. So, multiple sources of truth for multiple systems, tons of Excel and Word documents saved in, all over a SharePoint site. I talked about the handoffs, very complicated manual and error-prone workflows. It just happens when you have human intervention, and they are the ones actually, they're the workflow. So we utilize emails to trigger our next steps in workflow. So we're dependent on a person to make sure that they send an email to the other person and another department to make sure that they know that they need to do something. So it's painful. We're making it work, but we cannot wait to, really see the full benefit of Sendshare once we go live. It just continues on with the disconnected sporadic syndication tools. The reliance on tribal knowledge, so significant. We have essentially one team that knows what needs to happen and when it needs to happen. All of the requirements from our retailers. Again, that attribute explosion that we've seen over the years. And then, because we are an FDA regulated organization, there's significant liability exposure for inaccurate data for us. So lots of, pressure on us to make sure that we have it right. Next slide.
Okay, so yep. So our plans for growth over the next 3 to 5 years, obviously, as Amy mentioned, there's a lot of work to do still, and we're not live yet. We're planning our go live in January with Sendshare, and the graphic over on the right-hand side of the screen kind of represents more of our build-to architecture. There's, if you think of the spaghetti diagram we have at the beginning and how it gets simplified, we kind of bucketed our the data elements, the 300 to 500 fields that Amy had referred to, into 8 different data identifiers, so to speak. And then we started looking for where are the feeders for those data elements coming into our centralized content hub that we have in the middle there. And then we started, okay, what do we need to build interfaces for? What can be manual in the, coming up? So right now we're primarily feeding Sendshare with one feed, so to speak, from our ERP solution. Now, going forward, as Amy kind of alluded to, but she mainly talked about our US business. In the US, we have one primary ERP. In Europe, we're going to roll this out in Europe at some point, and that'll probably be within the next year or 2 years. The same solution is our plan right now. But currently, we have over 25 different ERPs over there. We have 20 different CRMs. We have multiple PLM solutions. So the complications of that are insane that we have to deal with. So while the our US challenge has turned out to be it's a mountain we're climbing, and we're climbing it one step at a time to get there. It seems doable. I'm a little concerned at how we're going to do this in Europe, but we'll get there one battle at a time, right?
That's right.
So continuing on this, or looking at this more, when we had talked about this, a lot of these things are fed into Sendshare in a manual process. We have SharePoint, we have Excel, just like every other company out there does. We have plans to put master data management, master data governance in place. We have plans for PLM. Ideally, when Amy called me, I would have said, well, hold on, why don't we start on the left-hand side and build out all of these things perfectly, and then feed it into Sendshare. That way we can just, have all the answers right away, have everything working, streamlined. But as just like everybody else on the phone, you want to keep your business in business by making money, or making money faster, which is what that Censhare solution is going to allow us to do, and also to keep your business partners happy, right? And if they're asking for something, you can't say, oh, stop, go away. We're going to do something else for a while until that's done. So that's a lot of the challenges that we're going through today. Now, what were our 3 to 5 years? I talked about, we're going to be planning to go to Europe at some point. With this, what we're doing right now in the US is continuing to optimize and standardize our solutions that are in Sendshare and feeding Sendshare. So I talked about where we have plans now for a PLM. It helped to justify the case for that. Plans for master data management. One of the realities I think every company has, and I think most companies are in denial until they start going through the heat of battle, is how much things are not standardized, right? So you have things that are outside of that are in somebody's head or in somebody's Excel spreadsheet that they don't even realize they do it all the time. That's how they get the data to the right source, so that you can actually do something with that data. Doing something about that is kind of the key. That this has brought a lot of those things to light. We always say the faster you're getting that we get in this process, and Sendshare is speeding us up for sure. When you hit a pothole, it's going to hurt more, right? And those potholes are like, oh, well, we didn't even think about how the data is defined there. So that's something that we've identified, we're bringing to our steering team. We're trying to paint the picture as much as possible, knowing these things are right in our headlights for what we're doing. So, working down the business processes, getting our data consistency, that's kind of the next 3 to 5 years, and then continuing to build out Sendshare and I'll, look at that generalized or the general content hub, getting everything to flow through there as much as possible from the content management solution, from the DAM part of it, from the PIM part of it. We have graphic servers that are out there we're trying to eliminate to get all the content that's in there off of there, because those are 10-year-old systems with a ton of metadata that has to be resorted and re-entered into Sendshare, all of those things. So it's quite a battle, but we all see the light and we all see the benefit for it. And we're very excited for it to come to fruition.
I think what Derek said there is kind of an interesting idea, which is like, once we have the content hub in place, it makes it much easier to start planning for those other projects in the next 5 years with a PLM or an MDM. Because you have the content hub in place, you can start to plan around it. And another thing that I thought, go ahead.
Can I just come in here, Josh, because we have a specific question about SAP, and I think with what you're talking about and also the graphic we've got on the slide here, if someone's wondering just how your system integrates with SAP, is that maybe you could talk about if there's an out-of-the-box connector, or if you sort of do custom integrations there. And maybe how vital was that for this particular implementation? Maybe that's something that that Amy could talk about, or otherwise. Go ahead. Not sure.
Actually, Derek could probably speak to it better than I can. But first off, what I will say, it was critical to our project to make sure that we had that connection with SAP. And as far as the type of connection, Derek, what?
Yeah, so we're using APIs to call that through, and there are some standard APIs there, and we're we're using things like business objects, that type of stuff, to help to pull the data and combine the data and pull it forward. One of the key points you actually brought up, though, is when we were going through and looking at the data sources that are out there, we made a decision early on, because we don't have a PLM. Should we build that the data that's not in a PLM today? Should we put it in Sendshare, or should we put it in SAP until the PLM is built? And we made a decision at that point to put it into SAP and then pull that data. So we're trying to move our controlled data, so to speak, further to the left on this chart, while keeping the fast data, right? Anything that needs to be syndicated, changed, approved, workflowed very quickly, more towards the right. So I think that's also a key point on there.
And one of the things that Amy mentioned that I also thought was worth re-pointing out is she mentioned they have a lot of tribal knowledge. And a lot of people probably on this webinar are sitting there going, yeah, we have a lot of people that have been on our team for 10 or 15 plus years, and they have a lot of tribal knowledge on where things are and how it works. And one of the goals in the Content Hub is to be able to have that tribal knowledge actually not just be tribal, but be within the hub, so that as you have new staff, or if you have turnover, that you don't lose that tribal knowledge. And I think that's really important. So on that note, let's go ahead and take a look at the Sendshare demo. Let's go ahead and see how this actually works. Go ahead and see how the PIM and the DAM overlap. So Justin, we'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Josh, and thank you everyone else. So just to give a quick introduction to how I like to go through my presentations. I like to start off all my presentations just going over an agenda, so we have a great idea or a good scope of what is it that we're going to be looking at throughout the course of this very short demo that I'm going to be giving today. So first, I'm going to be giving a conceptual overview. I want everyone in this room to get to be able to understand how Sendshare works from a conceptual way, with how the PIM and the DAM overlap one another. Next thing is the web client overview, just so that you guys can all see what does it feel like to be using Sendshare from the web client. And then finally, that actual use case, the PIM. And I'll be diving into the PIM and start showcasing some of those overlaps that we have with the DAM. So inside of Sendshare, we store a lot of different types of products, and these can be known as objects,
and these objects will have attributes that are essentially attached to them or metadata. This information is fed into Censhare from, as we heard earlier, from an ERP system such as SAP or any type of PLM. And with these products that are stored inside the system, this is where we differentiate a little bit compared to other PIM vendors. So once a product is stored within the system, as you can see right here, we have these contextual relationships that you can create with other assets that are being stored inside the system. So we'll have a product, and this product will have an relational type of a main image to a specific image that's already stored within the system. So you can start to see this is where the dam starts overlapping with our PIM. And going from there, you can create as many different types of relational types as you would want and have these assets stored inside the system and relate them to a specific asset, such as a product. So you can see this product has a main image. It has a lot of different other types of media images attached to it as well. And it also has possibly a main video. Not only that, you can also see that we have initially a lot of different types of content or product descriptions about this product. And we provide full translation capabilities. So if you were wanting to scale to more types of, for more languages, that is something that we do as well. And enough of the slides. What I want to do now is start diving into that actual web client overview so you can get a feel for what's really going on right when we get inside of the system. So right when you look at this, you might be thinking, wow, that is a lot that is initially going on. And there is a lot that's going on right here. But this is what I want to do is to quickly break this down within this quick web client overview. So what's possibly catching your eye right at the moment are these little windows that we're currently looking at. And these windows are known as widgets. These widgets are the bread and butter of Sendshare, in my opinion, and they will provide enormous amounts of variations of functionality for your system and for your ease of use, meaning we provide close to 300 pre-configured widgets for your users to be able to use to populate for their own workspaces as they work within the system. And as I move throughout this demonstration, you'll be able to see that we have all these different widgets that are being populated throughout these different pages and throughout these different assets. So going from the dashboard, I just want to briefly go through this left-hand navigation. We can see that we can move into the product page where we're able to see more information about what is going on within the product side of Sendshare. We're able to initially see some of the hierarchies that we're able to create with our products that we're storing inside of the system. You might be curious, we can also see all of the assets you might be favoriting within the system as well. And this is just to give you an idea that you can have these different pages for different users that will have different responsibilities. And at the same time with that, you can have widgets populated within them to fulfill those different types of functionalities that you might want. On the top-hand side, this is where you can create different types of assets. So inside of Sendshare, we believe that anything and everything that is important to an organization can be an asset. So we have customers in a variety of different industries. So the type of assets they have inside the system will be very different from case to case. We also provide areas where your system administrators can create templates for your coworkers to be able to use so they can have boilerplates when they're working or creating assets inside of the system. And of course, this is where the DAM side comes along as well, where we have our quick search, detailed search, and expert search functionalities when it comes to finding any assets that you're storing inside the system. So enough of that with the web client overview. I think it's time that we start actually diving into a specific product. And so the product that I want to initially open up is this product that we have right here. So this is what a product looks like when you open it up inside of Sendshare. You'll see essentially what asset type is this specific asset that I'm working with. And you'll see that it's being populated with all of these different widgets, as I said before. You can see, you get a quick description of what's going on with the product, with some of that images that were brought to it from the DAM side. You can get those different descriptions as well about that specific product. And you can see those different translations that we've created for this product as well. Going from there, on top of that, this is where you'll be able to store all of your technical information about these products that you're essentially feeding into the system. And this information can be essentially locked in a way where you'll have hierarchies of different products, and they would have exclusive type of technical details where you can create business logic so that they'll only have information that is relevant to them, as you can see right here. Going from there, we have initially the what we call our quality gates or a completeness check. So a lot of times these products will be coming into the system, and then as they're into the system, they'll go through this workflow process where they need to be worked through multiple workflow steps all the way until they're completely published. And so this is where you can see how complete is this product currently? Is it able to be published to different channels? Can I publish it to any retailers or wherever I want to initially publish this information to? Going from there, we can go through these different tabs as well about this product. You can see this overlap that we have of the DAM. This is where we can store all of those different assets that we're storing inside the system as within this product that we're currently looking at. We can see that this is where we would store all the different translations as well about the product as we saw earlier. And so this is where we would create those variants. And as well as that hierarchy, as I briefly talked about earlier, you can see where is it that this specific product lives within this hierarchy that I have. So you can see we have a couple different hierarchies, and you can see where is it that it currently lives within the specific category, within the specific hierarchies. Going from there, we have things such as any types of marketing collateral that can be added as a relation to this product as well. So you can see that the idea is that you're going to be storing all this information inside of Sendshare, and you can create these relations to this product or to this asset, which is what I'm going to be showing in the very end. So you can see that holistic view where you can see all of those meaningful relationships this product has created over its lifetime working through the actual system. And then going from there, we also offer ways of communication as well. So if you want to have a conversation with anybody when you're actually working on the specific product through the system, you can have full conversations with other people about what is typically going on with the specific product, as well as any approval actions. So as we do allow the ability to create tasks on top of our workflows, so you can have these tasks and these workflows work in parallel fashion until this product is ready to be published. And of course, on that note as well, everything inside of Sendshare, every single asset type is completely versioned. So you can see that with all assets that we store inside the system, we're keeping a complete version of all of them. So you know who is doing what with each asset type, and you can restore them to any previous versions that you have in the past. Going from there, I want to briefly just show that we do allow, or that you can create a very robust hierarchy system within the system, within Censhare. So you can see right here that we have a hierarchy, and you can see that we have a couple different product categories. This is just a demo instance. Your company will probably be completely different, but you can see that we can create these different product categories and these different types of hierarchies with different business logic about where these products should fit in within the specific hierarchy. Moving on from there, one thing I want to show is how easy is it to initially create or to feed information into the system from an Excel sheet. And so that's what I want to showcase really briefly at the moment. So it's very easy. We can easily drag and drop an Excel sheet into the initial system. And from there, we're constantly checking if there's any duplicates that are already within the system, because you don't want any essential products to be created that are exactly the same. And if we click on upload, what's initially happening is that we will be parsing through that information within the Excel sheet. So if I open it up right here, so you can take a quick look, we'll parse through this information that we have right here, and we'll create products with the technical details that we're able to see within this Excel sheet that we're just ingesting. So if I go into the products tab, You can see that we just imported all of these different products within the system. And we take a quick look into them. Now, on top of ingesting these products into the system, we can also bulk edit all of these products within an Excel sheet format. So if we look into all of these products, we can go into the newest products, or we can go into our stored searches, which will show our newest products. We can easily edit what we're able to see with our properties editor and give us a view very similar to an Excel sheet. So we can see all the products that we have within the system, within this Excel sheet right here that we can edit, bulk edit, and then export out of the system once we're finished. So if I want to export this information out of the system, I can easily go back into here and I can export the search result and I can click on a specific transformation. So we can create very diverse types of transformations that will allow you to have different types of schemas for the information that you want to pull out of the system. So you're going to be storing a lot of different information about these products, but maybe you want specific information to come out of them. So you can create, as you would call, stored searches or queries about these products that are being stored within the system. And then you can choose a transformation that you would want for this information that you want to export out and possibly give to a partner or to whoever it might be. So let's just say test right here and click on export. And we can easily see right here, looking at the test folder, that this is the schema that we have within the demo system. But of course, we're very flexible with what type of schema, with what information you typically would want outside of all of your of all the products that are being stored within the system. Now, going from there, what I want to show is initially that overlap that we have with the PIM and the DAM side. So if we go into our favorites page right here, we're able to go and lock into that spider view that Josh was showing earlier within the presentation. And we can see that we can see all of these meaningful relationships that are going on with this specific product that we were just working with. You can see that we have information about like who is reviewing it, what is this product similar to, and as well as that, if we keep going back, I know it might be very small, we can also see that main picture as we see right there. So this is where we start overlapping with that DAM side. So, whoa, if you give it one moment.
Justin, I just want to make sure we have time. We've got a lot of questions that have come in. So if you could just maybe wrap up the demo so we can make sure people get their questions answered, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course, no worries. One sec.
Or if that's going to take a little while. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. Just quickly going over that overlap that we had. So we had an image that was related to the product, and here we can see that this is the image that we were essentially working with. So you can see that we have metadata about the specific image that is essentially related to the product, and you can see that we have all of those typical DAM functionalities that you would have with all of those pictures that are being related to that initial product that we were just looking at, such as any type of editing that you might want to do. Any simple type of editing when it comes to rotating or cropping an image, anything such as aspect ratios as well with any of the images, and as well as our initial interface that we have of Google Vision's API, we are allowed to initially analyze any of the images and use Google Vision API to automatically tag these images to build some sort of taxonomy for yourself within the DAM, and as well as any type of usage rights. But it's very similar to the PIM product we were looking at earlier, where you have the communication. And as I said earlier, we are constantly versioning all of the assets that we're storing within the system. But just looking at time, I think it's time for me to essentially stop with the demo and have some time for all the questions that are probably coming up at the moment. So
Well,
thank
you,
you, guys.
Justin.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
worries.
We actually have a few questions specifically for the Perrigo team. And one of them that I think is really critical when it comes to PIM and content hubs and PIM and DAM is about label content and about content on labels. So I wonder if, you know, Amy or Derek, if you could talk about whether or not you're using your content hub to also manage label content in addition to the content that's about the products that's in your PIM.
Yeah, so this is Amy. We are using, we have a very regulated process around labeling, again, because we are an FDA regulated organization. And that process does reside outside of the PIM today. However, our regulatory affairs, they have very specific workflows that we have created within the PIM that helps manage all of the content that will be syndicated out to our retailers. The beauty of Sendshare is these workflows that we can create, and we can build some hard stops in those workflows that our regulatory affairs department has required us to have. And so, you know, we do have the labeling, I'll say, for that actually goes on the product. That process is managed outside of the PIM. However, what we use to syndicate to retailers, that is managed within the PIM. Does that answer the question, I hope?
I think so. That was great. Thanks. On the flip side, I guess you're obviously not selling, well, you might be, I guess you are selling direct, or you're not selling direct to consumer, I think. There's a question about whether you're integrated with eCommerce or something like Salsify or any of the downstream eCommerce apps, or you're probably more commonly syndicating to retailers, I would guess. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so we are getting into the direct to consumer, and we will utilize Sendshare to help facilitate the content for a lot of that. E-commerce, honestly, is one of, and it's probably the same for any organization out there with any type of product, is our largest growing channel today. And so we do a lot we do everything for our retailers when it comes to the products that we sell them, and putting that information online for them through their portals.
Okay, great. We have a question about taxonomy management and metadata, and I don't know if it might make this a two-part question. Perhaps Amy, you can talk a bit about how you manage taxonomy and metadata capabilities at Pergo, but I also wonder if, I don't know if Justin, you could bring the demo back up and maybe show some of how that happens in Censhare as part of the answer to the question, just to give, maybe we can visualize it a little bit, because somebody was specifically asking about how does that look when you're managing it. So maybe Amy, do you want to talk about that while Justin's bringing that up?
Yeah, and this is Derek.
Sure.
I can start that out if you want, Amy.
Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah.
When Amy came forward, as I had mentioned at the beginning of this, with the 500 field request, one of the first things that our implementation partner requested is that we get controls around our schema, our PIM schema. And that controls, typically they're managed in the business, but it's a lot of, it's a hand-in-hand IT and the business working together to get that PIM schema under control, what the source is, what it has to look like, all of that. So we do have that taxonomy documented pretty well, and we're still trying to get it. It's a full-time responsibility to make sure that thing's managed, because there's a lot of changes to it and a lot of evolutions to that PIM schema, and it's happened a lot throughout this project.
Great. Justin, do you want to show a bit of how that works, organizing the taxonomy and the schema in Censhare?
Sure.
Are you still there, Justin?
Yeah.
Perfect.
No worries. So yeah, a lot of times when you're storing a lot of these different digital assets inside the system, you're able to organize it in a way of adding things such as different keywords or different groups of these assets that you're storing inside of the system. So you can see right here, you can attach keywords of these different assets that you're storing inside the system so that when you want to find them at a later date, you can essentially have this controlled vocabulary where you can find all these different assets that are belonging to the different keywords. On top of that, you're able to have things such as any type of, you're allowed to create group assets. So these group assets will sort of mimic the functionality as you would have within your own local machine when it comes to having folders of assets that are storing inside of them. And you can initially create these different types of group folders that you can have for yourself, or you can have for the whole entire organization as a whole. But on top of that, Rui, do you think I should add anything else when it comes to building onto the taxonomy for assets inside of the system?
Yes, hello, Rui here. I'm part of the product management of Sendshare. I would just like to add that what Justin showed in the initial slide, and that view of all the relations in a network view is really the base thing here to understand that, of course, sometimes you want to show information and hierarchical structure, but underneath it's all different types of relations within the system. So we do offer out-of-the-box concepts to make this easier, like the keyword structure that Justin just showed. But of course, different types of free text, different types of synonyms, and so on and so forth, that can be stored as individual assets, as we see right here, or as attributes stored directly on an individual asset, like an image or a product itself.
Great. Okay. Thanks for showing that. There's some questions about standards as well. People are asking if you support either, for example, schema.org or IPTC or IPTC extension metadata. Again, that'd be a good question for both of you. I guess, does Sendshare as a system support those standards? And then Pergo, are you using any of those standards in your day-to-day management of assets and metadata?
This is Amy. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I imagine, Justin, you probably are going to show now some areas of XMP. I see. Maybe you're going to show some other standards that you support.
So with all of the images that we're storing inside the system, we do store information for adding metadata about them for the XF, the IPTC, for the XMP. And what we see right here is fully flexible. So you can create your own metadata type of schema for images, for videos, if you want more information to be filled out for these different asset types.
Great. And I imagine you could add more tabs there if you wanted to support additional standards and put the fields in yourself if you wanted to.
Exactly.
Yeah, super. Okay. Another question that's a very interesting question is around hierarchy versus being able to kind of transverse data. And this is something I think with Censhare's very flexible data model, this would be interesting to talk about. So there's ways to experience data in Sendshare that is, of course, not necessarily hierarchical. I think you showed that briefly when you showed the spider diagram, but maybe you can talk a bit about the different ways that users can approach data versus just hierarchically. And of course, I'd be curious to know if Pergo is using any of those that are non-hierarchical in terms of ways into the data.
And Rui, that might be a good question for you to answer.
Yes. So as I mentioned in my previous answer about the different types of tagging information within a semantic network, of course, there are many different benefits. One I would really say is an enormous one is the possibility to query and search within this network. So if we remember the initial slide that Justin showed where we had a product in the middle and a related main image, that image might also have a additional relation going further down in the network. So the possibility to actually query this information to see how these connections are connected to each other, or the assets are connected to each other, I would say is an extremely positive benefit. All of this also makes it possible for you to make dynamical searches that are waiting for when specific connections are built or relations are built within the system. Another example he showed here in the demo was new products coming into the system. That can be based either on properties on the asset itself or relation to something else in the system. An asset that's representing this has a specific state, for example. So the querying and the dynamicness of relations being created at a go is one very, very big benefit. And the third one I really want to mention is where we started this presentation about emphasizing the flexibility of our system and the possibility for you to create your own logical relations. So in our case here, we showed something that is a main picture, but in your system, in your environment, in your reality, you might have something very explicit that is very explicit for your business or for your industry or even for your company or department. And the possibility to actually create these own flexible relations and not be stuck in a hierarchical structure with a parent and a child will allow you a lot of flexibility and the freedom to understand your information.
Great, thank you for that very detailed answer. Another question we have is around 3D assets, and I think you showed a little bit of that. You showed a little bit of that earlier when you were showing the T-shirt, but can you talk a little bit more about whether or not Sendshare can handle the 3D assets and rendering and how that looks? And also, is this something that you can do with a third-party system? I'm thinking about Quickie. Someone here has mentioned Quickie, which I know a lot of product companies use to manage their 3D files. There we go.
Would you want to answer that, Rui?
Yes, of course. So what we have here, this is part of our digital asset management system. So we have the possibility to store different 3D models within our system, and they will be treated as any other assets, like an image, like a video, like an audio. So you have all the same functionality of those. What we offer with the 3Ds is what you see right here, the possibility to actually preview them, spin it around, changing some of the different the textures if you have that within your models. And we support a variety of different 3D model files. So our capability is really to store 3D models within our system like any other DAM and connect it within this semantic network.
Great. Okay, I think that covers most of the questions. I was wondering I think you had a couple of wrap-up slides, perhaps, to finish off, Josh?
Sure. So, of course, key takeaways here are some of the roles of the PIM, its power, and applying that to your content hub, making sure that you understand that, hey, anyone could potentially need a PIM if they've got a story that needs some attributes around that story to tell and track and manage. Of course, there's always modern day challenges on the product information to overcome, and the sooner that you start to tackle those, the better off you are. And then we covered a few questions on what to ask PIM vendors, and also those semantic relationships, as you could see, that came up a couple different times, not only in the presentation and the demo, but again in the questions, and how you're making those connections and why that helps within a PIM and managing that product data. And then I wanted to give Amy and Derek a chance to give a couple of Pergo takeaways as well.
Yeah,
Sure,
thanks,
Josh.
Go ahead, Amy.
Go ahead, Derek. Oh. What I will say, one of the biggest takeaways that we've had from this is, making sure that we have our business processes documented of what we are, currently doing today, so that we can look at, what we're doing good and what we're not doing so good. And for me, understanding how long is it really taking us to do this in a manual process today. So, do a Gemba of that manual process. And, because an electronic solution is going to, significantly reduce the amount of time that you're spending doing that. Another big takeaway for us as we, continue on this journey with Sendshare is, making sure we understand where does our data reside. We found over 40 different locations that we're pulling data from. Right? That's huge. Derek, anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, probably the last thing I would add to that is don't be afraid to work in parallel. Sometimes you have to work in the middle in the Content Hub
Right.
at the same time as you're doing your PLM or whatever in the front, the feeders that go into that. So it makes it more complicated, but you will get the benefit at the end.
Perfect. And if we can go to the next slide, Justin. Okay, so we already covered some of the questions. I thought that was pretty lively, great questions. So there's some contact details there.
If anyone else has questions, you have 15 seconds to add them to the questions tab, and we'll cover them. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up. There's already been a lot of really great questions, a lot of great participation. If we don't get any more questions in the next 15 seconds, we will look forward to seeing you on the next session of this series, which is actually Tuesday next week, if I remember correctly. It's not Wednesday, so just be sure to check your schedule. It's about Content Hub's MRM, which is Marketing Resource Management, and productivity. So we're going to talk quite a bit about a completely different aspect of Content Hubs next week. So thanks a lot for joining us, and thanks to Sendshare and Pergo for your participation and your excellent content in this session. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.